Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. Dan Kroll here for episode 58. And tonight I have Beth Rasmussen on with me. Beth is a longtime teacher and former coach at West Hancock. How you doing tonight, Mrs. Rasmussen?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
Good. And just know it's probably going to come out as Mrs. Rasmussen. My former teachers and coaches, that's usually how I just have a hard time using your first name still. So,
Yeah, I had the same thing.
Yep. I have a lot of respect for my former teachers and coaches. I know you weren't my teacher, but you were a teacher when I was a kid. So that's what I know you as. So, all right. Before we get to Mrs. Rasmussen, I have 14 sponsors tonight. Thanks as always to those sponsors that you see behind me on my screen. A lot of money going into the Legacy Fund tonight because of this episode. So thank you again. I have Nick Schmidt, Levi Dawn Trucking, Miller and Sons Golf Cars, Jay Hiscox of State Farm Insurance, Eric Kroll of Ag Performance, Window World, Swenson's Hardware, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Daniel's Auto Collision, Katie's Salon and Tanning, Anna Gritters, White Barn Picket Fence, and Jan Rosga and her book, Raw Survival. Like always, the Sanger Legacy Fund money is used for the West Hancock Hall of Fame, scholarships for graduating seniors. We support athletic and activity funds at West Hancock, and then community outreach programs as well. If you want to sponsor a podcast or just give to the Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com to learn more, or you can get a hold of me. 5 episodes ago on episode 53, I talked to Rolly Zamago and John Charbonneaux. 15 episodes ago on episode 45 was Lois Stuflick Johnson, a Kanawha legend. 30 episodes ago on episode 28 was Jason Harle. And 45 episodes ago on episode 13 was the 1980 Girls State Championship basketball team. The book I mentioned a minute ago, Raw Survival, it's written by Jan Rosga, talks about her journey through her grief journey when she lost her 18-year-old son after he smoked a synthetic drug called K2 and took his life 90 minutes later. Jan goes to my church here in Indianola, wrote this book. Our pastor wrote the foreword to it. It's a great book. You can find it on Amazon. I'll have that link on my post here later tonight. The Jay Hiscox State Farm team in Britt's a proud supporter of West Hancock and the Sanger Legacy Fund. For a free quote review, give Jay or Lindsay a call at 843-3563. Thanks to Nick Schmidt for sponsoring another episode. He's a 2000 West Hancock grad and wanted to give back to the Legacy Fund. So thanks to Nick Schmidt for doing that. And then White Barn Picket Fence. You ever heard of that business, Mrs. Rasmussen?
I have heard. It's a really nice place. You should stop by there sometime.
Exactly. That's owned by Amanda Crumweed, aka Amanda Rasmussen. She has locations in Algona and Clear Lake. She specializes in photography, newborn and children's, as well as families. And she also has a shop online or in store. You can check her out at whitebarnpicketfence.com. Yeah, I was saying she's a good one. We'll keep her. So. All right, here we go, Miss Rasmussen. Thanks for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. Like I said, you weren't my teacher, but you were I was in school when you were teaching next door. I had Mrs. Fogarty. So it's always kind of fun for me to talk to people, not just from Britt or West Hancock, but from my childhood. That's always a lot of fun for me. So sure. Welcome and thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, so before we get to some of your coaching and other things, let's talk about your background and how you made it to Britt. Tell everyone where you grew up, what your childhood was like, your sports background, college, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, I grew up in Lake Mills, spent my whole time there. I went to Lake Mills High School. When I was I was an 8th grader, Lake Mills started girls basketball. And of course, that was 6-on-6. And then it wasn't until I was a sophomore that they started volleyball, and they already had golf and track. And then it was a few years later, they started softball. So played basketball course. And then I got a scholarship to Nyack to play basketball there. And the colleges were all 5-on-5 by that time. Mm-hmm. And then I had a scholarship after Nyack to go to Iowa State. But back to when I was playing high school ball, and I remember playing Britt at Britt, and there was a freshman on the team for Britt that I thought, boy, she's going to be something special. And it comes to find out, I was thinking, I'm a senior. I was pretty glad I was going to be about done because I knew that she was going to be awesome. And it turns out that not very long ago, Dan, you were the spokesman to honor her into the West Hancock Hall of Fame. And that was Carrie Wallen.
Yeah, she wasn't bad. Yeah.
She did just fine, didn't she?
Yeah, that's cool. So you were a senior when she was a freshman.
Yes.
So she was on the 80 team, so that would have been like 77 or so.
Yes.
Okay. When did, this is kind of a little off topic here, but when did Jim Beamer come to Lake Mills? Do you remember? Do you know how long he's been there?
I'm not sure. He has been there quite a while, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you think Lake Mills volleyball, that's who you think of nowadays. So I was just curious if you crossed paths with him besides coaching at all, or
no.
no. So
No, I
yeah,
haven't.
Iowa State basketball. How'd you do at Iowa State?
Well, we did fine. Enjoyed my time. But yeah, I was more interested in going on with my life and my future than basketball at that time.
Yeah. Who would have been the head coach at Iowa State for women's then?
At that time, her name was Ann Wheeler.
Okay. And was
On from Iowa State to Rutgers.
okay. Was Johnny Orr the men's coach about that time, or did you miss him on campus?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay. He would have.
He might have been.
Yeah, he would have been an interesting one to hang out as well. So
yeah.
So after college, Thompson Community School District, correct? That was your first job?
After I graduated, I got a job right away in Thompson. I was the first grade teacher there for 9 years. And then I was head track for 1 year. But I was the head volleyball coach. And at that time, middle school was at a different time than when the high schools were playing. So I was able to coach the middle school as well.
Oh, nice. So did you guys practice like during the school day?
No, they had middle school volleyball during the winter months.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, they used to have it that way in the NIC conference to help allow the coaches to do both.
Oh, nice. I asked about during the school day because my first job at Southeast Warren, the last 2 class periods of the day were middle school sports. So
really?
We would have, like, I would coach middle school girls track 7th and 8th period. And then I was the high school golf coach after school. So, and that was just 10, 11 years ago. So I didn't know that was something similar to that. So
no, it wasn't.
Yeah. What'd you think of Thompson and the building there? Because I used to sub over there and I coached middle school football. That was another old school type building. What'd you think of that school district?
I enjoyed it. It was a nice gym. But then eventually when they became North Iowa, all the high school went to Buffalo Center, and then the middle school came to Thompson, but each school kept their own elementary for a while. Yeah.
Who would some of the teachers have been that you worked with there that I might have a shot at knowing who they are?
In Thompson?
Yeah.
Well,
moved over to Buffalo.
Teacher was Ruth Tweedo, and the second grade teacher was Connie Lockram.
Yep, I know Connie.
And we had Suzanne Keel.
Yep.
And Larry Huntington.
Yeah, they just retired 2 years ago, her and her husband, maybe. Her and Brad. Yep.
They were close, yeah.
Yep.
Those
I know them.
Some of the people I worked with.
Yeah, yep. I subbed at North Iowa for a couple of years, and then I did middle school football, so I know several of those people.
Sure.
None of them are around anymore at the school. There's been a lot of turnover at North Iowa. I think they had like 25 new teachers in the last 2 years. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been interesting over there. So what made you move over to Britt in 1992?
Well, my husband got a job as a agronomist at the elevator in Britt. And so we moved to Britt, and then I continued to drive back to the Thompson to teach for just a couple years before I got the position in West Hancock.
Yeah. Was it tough to get a job back then? I know turnover, there wasn't much of that.
No,
in
there
the
wasn't
Britt.
much turnover at that time, but they were looking for a head girls basketball coach. Bill Hudson had resigned from that position, but he continued to do his counseling position for a couple more years.
Okay. Do you know why Bill gave up the basketball part of things? I've never asked that question or been told that. Was he just ready to kind of lighten his load a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think so. And it had just not very long ago had switched to the 5-on-5.
Yeah, that'd be a tough switch. Because for a while, didn't they have a 6-on-6 and a 5-on-5 like state tournament?
They did. I looked it up. I think it was about 1984 is when some of the bigger schools, the Des Moines size schools, started transitioning into 5-on-5.
Mhm.
And eventually it took about 10 years until everybody was 5-on-5.
Then they kind of made it this is what we're doing. Everyone's going to 5-on-5.
It was a push from the colleges.
Yeah.
It's not a very easy transition if you're playing 6-on-6, especially if you're in a guard position, to get a college position.
Yeah. What game did you like better, 6-on-6 or 5-on-5?
I've been asked that question quite a bit. I actually really enjoyed them both.
Yeah.
Because I was a forward in high school, it was an easier transition for me to go into the 5-on-5 rules.
Yeah. Have to be in pretty good shape though for either, but 5-on-5 for sure. That might add an element if you're in one particular position. So yeah. So in my research, I found that you came in with Frank Knoll, Christy Gremmer, Terry Heeman, and Phyllis Nearing as new teachers that year. Did you guys back then have a lot of like new teacher orientation type stuff like they have today, or was it pretty much here's your classroom, get to work?
No, there was pretty much a one-day meeting for new teachers, just to get the idea of where things are at, rules, regulations of the school, just simple things.
Yeah, nowadays it's like a full week, I think, of new teacher stuff. And by the time the other teachers come in and then the kids come in, they're already a couple weeks into it and exhausted. I don't wish back those days at all. So I wasn't sure how that went back then. Frank Knoll, I know he was the band teacher when I was in middle school. Christy Gremmer, I don't believe was in the school system when I was obviously in the school system in 92, but that I remember as I was older. Mr. Heeman, I remember him. He was in the upper elementary for my last couple years. And then Miss Nearing, I think, just retired not that long ago. I think she was in
Not
there.
too long ago.
Yeah, over in Kanawha mostly. So do you remember the interview process? I love this question about getting a teaching job. Do you remember what that was like interviewing at that time?
Well, Hugh Carter was who interviewed me for the 5th grade position, and he actually was a teacher and a coach in Manly when I was in high school. And so he knew of me because of athletics. So when I was already the assistant volleyball coach for 2 years with Robin Drake.
Okay.
So it wasn't too intense of an interview just because he kind of already knew me.
Yeah, that's good. And again, unlike today where, man, they have to teach a lesson and portfolio stuff. I don't ever want to leave I-35 at this point. And just, I think,
just so you don't have to interview again. Yeah.
My wife has said the same thing. She goes, I would never go through that again. We're staying put. So for many reasons, we're staying put. But yeah. So girls basketball, you got hired as the head coach after Coach Hudson. Did you feel any pressure there? We'll get into basketball later, but any pressure kind of taking over for a guy like Bill?
Oh yeah, he was a legend, wasn't he? Yeah. And yeah, I had not coached basketball before. I had done plenty of volleyball coaching, but not basketball.
So you went straight to head coach without any
I
middle
did.
school or JV experience? Nice.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that would be a little daunting, that's for sure. So we're going to start with volleyball. I'm going to get to a few more sponsors and we're going to talk some volleyball here. I'd like to thank Michael and Brianne Ewing of Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company with locations in Britt, Kanawha, Clarion, Belmont, and Dow's. Find them online at ewingfh.com. Give them a call at 843-3839 or 762-3211. And thanks to Daniels Auto Collision in Charles City. Owner Jason Daniels is a 1990 West Hancock grad. Call them at 641-220-3805. Email them at danielsautocollision@gmail.com or check them out on their website. And then the Showalter family in Window World in Mason City is a proud supporter of the podcast. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Fly high, Coach Sanger and Joey Showalter. Katie's Salon and Tanning is owned by Katie Walk, located on Main Street in Titonka. Find her on Instagram or Facebook. Call her at 928-2303 for appointments. And then Miller and Sons Golf Cars is a family-owned operation with over 50 years of experience. Skip and Jim Miller can be contacted at 843-4132 or at millergolfcars.com. All right, let's talk some volleyball. Robin Drake, he was my basketball coach, PE teacher. He was the head coach. Do you remember what years he was the head coach? When did he start? And when did he wrap up the volleyball portion of his coaching?
I don't know the year that he started. I started in the 95, right? I think I started in the 95 school year, and he had already been coaching, but I don't know how long.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I didn't look that part up. So speaking of that 95 season, you guys had a pretty good year, obviously. You won the North Iowa Conference tournament title in 95. Some girls I found in my research: Rachel Wilms, Denise Rasmussen, the other Denise Rasmussen, Amy Peterson, Stacy Dawn, Erin Benton, Shelley DeWard, Christy DeCrife, Tanya McClary, Danielle Dawn, Brooke Wilson, and some girl named Candace Wilson. I heard she was all right too.
She did all right.
Yeah, what do you remember about that championship season in 95?
Well, going into, I don't know how they do it right now, but at the time, the schedule that you had during the season was how your win-loss record was how you were seeded in the NIC tournament. And when we went to the NIC conference picks, Robin Drake had suggested that maybe we should have just a season tournament and then have an NIC tournament champion, do both. But most of them just wanted that one-day tournament that you either win it or not kind of thing. You're the champion or you're not. So 2 years in a row, we were the NIC champions, and at neither time were we going into that tournament with the best record.
Okay, so they didn't really crown a regular season champion at the time. It was more just the straight up tournament.
Straight up tournament.
Yeah, that's interesting. And Drake was kind of the one who spearheaded the format to do that as well.
Well, he was the one that suggested that maybe we have both.
Yeah.
Season champion and then a tournament champion. But at that time, none of the coaches really wanted to do that. They just decided they wanted a one-day deal.
And how did that look for you guys in that one-day deal, winning it?
Perfect. They were perfect for us because, like I said, we were not the number one seed going in because we didn't have the best record, but we ended up being the NIC champs those 2 years.
Do you remember who you guys beat that first time around and how that looked?
I don't remember the first year who we ended up beating. The second year I'm pretty sure we beat Forest City.
Okay.
Yep. Forest City had upset Lake Mills.
Yep. And man, I think the beauty of that type of a tournament is if you get hot on that day,
exactly,
you have as good a chance as any, whether you're the 1 seed or the 4 seed or whatever. I mean, it's play well on that day and you have a chance. So, yep. So that next year in 96, what I found, you guys were 31-8-3 overall, but you lost to Lake Mills in the second round of regionals. You already said you guys won the conference tournament that year. I talked with Candace Wilson a little bit of this about this on her podcast, but how disappointed were you guys at this point? Did you have state aspirations in volleyball? What were kind of your expectations that year?
Well, of course, anytime you have to play Lake Mills, they're so good. They have been so good for so long. So obviously, and it was playing at Lake Mills. We relied a lot on Candace for any attacks, and she was cramping up by the end. We were in it the whole way. That was still back on a different scoring system. It was back to the old, if you don't serve, you don't get a point, which is different now. And it was to 15, which now that's different as well. So a little bit different scoring. There wasn't a libero at that time. But yeah, she was cramping up at the end because we relied so much on her.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, Lake Mills has just been powerhouse as long as I can remember. Were you guys pretty good when you were in high school when they started up volleyball? Or was it
Yeah,
hard?
the very first year that we got volleyball, we were in the state tournament.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's been pretty good for a while, we can say. Maybe a down year here and there, but then especially when Beamer came, that he's done a phenomenal job.
Yes.
Talk about Candace a little bit more. She's a Hall of Famer, so I'd hate to brush past her a little bit. What made Candace so good?
Her determination, mostly that. She just obviously exceptional athletic skills. She really enjoyed it. She played some ball during the winter time just to get herself even better. So yeah, determination.
Did you follow her career at Central?
I did. I went to some matches.
Yeah, I was
Pretty fun to watch.
not quite in college yet at that point, but when I got to Central in 2006, they still were talking about those teams.
Yes.
It was a pretty big deal, those 3 national championships. Some other players that I found, Megan Cooper, Anna Steinlich, Rachel Ritchie, which would be Rachel Zuhl now, Steph Drake, Coach Drake's daughter. What were some memories you have of those girls, those first couple seasons?
Well, I would have had those girls as freshmen, but I didn't have them when they became on the varsity squad. I was not coaching at that time.
Okay.
There was 2 years in there that I missed due to cancer.
Yeah. That'd be like 97, 98, 99, something like that.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And then I found 1997, I put a question mark next to this name, Christine Kuhl, Kuehl. She obviously took over for Drake. 96 was Drake's last season. Do you remember her? I know you said you weren't coaching, but what was the situation with her?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I saw that and I'm like, I think I'm pretty well versed in my West Hancock history, but that name was brand new to me. So do you remember when you got back into volleyball? Because you've been an assistant off and on for quite a while.
I was there, I think, for 12 seasons total.
12 seasons total. Were you the assistant to Michelle DeHart in that 2002 season where they made a run like 4 or 5 rounds deep? Were you on the sideline for that year in 2002?
I was.
Yeah, I talked to Sarah Swanson about that. That is still some of my favorite high school memories of the seniors pretty much all quit, put in all the young girls, and then we made a huge run. I think we were still a couple wins from state, but it was as far as we had made it since like Candace's years. And then when the teams went to state back in the late 70s, Mrs. Sanger, we can all blame her for the craziness in the gym. She got us all riled up and wanted us to support the girls, and holy cow, that was a blast. What do you remember about that?
Yeah, it was fun. Danielle Kostorf was a senior at that time, and she did stay. And we did have one other senior that came back to the squad.
Okay.
But we really relied on the younger kids then, and they stepped it up, and we went quite a ways in the tournament.
Yeah, I think we lost in the 4th round because they did it, the naming of the regionals and district. They had kind of it backwards, I think, from what they have now. But back in 1A and 2A, then you had to win like 6 games to get to state, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Because we won the district final. And then nowadays, it's like if you win one round, a couple rounds, and you go to the regionals and you have to win 1 or 2 there and you're in. Back
Right.
then, it was like district first round, second round, finals. Then it was regional first round, second round, finals, or something like that. So I just remember we were pretty tickled to get as far as we did, stormed the court a bunch of times and
Yeah,
pounded on the walls. It was a blast. So
it was fun.
what do you remember coaching with Coach DeHart? I see she's back at it again.
She is, yeah. No, it was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed working with her. She's a good coach.
Yeah. She was a great math teacher too. I had her in high school math. I didn't like math, but she made you do the math and learn it and held you accountable. So I'm pretty sure volleyball was the same way. She was pretty technically sound and worked a lot on the fundamentals, would be my guess.
Yes, yes, we did.
Yeah. Do you remember how long it's been since you coached volleyball?
Well, let's see. I could look it up. It's boy, Dan, you're stretching my memory here.
That's all right.
I'm
Like
not,
at least a handful of years, probably, or more than that.
absolutely. Yeah, I've been retired for 5.
Have you?
So, and it was probably a good, 7, 8 years before then.
Okay, so it's been a good decade plus.
Yes.
Yep. What led you to giving up volleyball? Just wanted more time and less stress?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's, something people don't get is just the time commitment it takes. They come to a game on whatever night of the week and they see you there and like, oh yeah, it took up their night, but they don't, a lot of people don't understand all the practice time, all the parent communication, all the stress, all the, there's just hundreds of things that go with it. Even as an assistant coach, it's a time consuming
Yeah,
deal.
it's a lot of, even after being the head, a lot of calling to do to TV stations and radio stations to give them all the win-loss things and the newspaper writing. And there's a lot more to it than just showing up to practice.
Yep. And now that varsity bound that they have, you can just punch it in the computer and you're done.
Yeah.
That part.
Had it then.
Yep. And then the stats and all, there's so much that goes into coaching that a lot of people don't get. So anything else volleyball wise you want to throw out there?
Well, I would give a shout out to, when you think about volleyball and it's the pass. To me, it's that first pass. If you don't have the first pass, you don't have anything. You don't have the set, you don't have anything. And obviously if you're serving, you have to have that, but that first pass. And I'd like to give a shout out to one of the players on that 96 team, to Stacy Grove.
Yep.
She was one of the best passers that I have ever seen. And she, because of that was back when there wasn't such a thing as a libero. And it was pretty rare to get somebody that's just a passer at that time on an NIC tournament, conference champion. And the coaches noticed her as well and voted her on as a first teamer.
Oh, nice. Do you get stats for passing? Is there a stat line for that? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. I did coach 1 year of middle school volleyball at I-35 as a can you breathe and walk? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, please coach volleyball for me this season. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So my knowledge of volleyball is still fairly limited. So yeah. All right. Well, we're going to move on to basketball here. Got a few more sponsors. The first one here is the Britt Car, Truck, Bike, and Tractor Night Cruise. Thanks to Jared Wingert. He's also the owner of Mojo Productions. You can give Jared a call at 408-1074 or go to brittcarcruise.com. And then Levi Don Trucking is my next sponsor. Thanks to Levi and his trucking company. You can call him at 641-860-0077 or look him up on Facebook. Swenson's Hardware is your local independently family-owned hardware store and have been since 1977 in downtown Britt. They're proud to serve Britt, Hancock County, and surrounding towns. Check them out at swensons.doitbest.com. And then Anna Gritters, who would be Anna Hellengay. She's sponsoring tonight's episode as one of your former athletes. So thanks to Anna for giving to the Legacy Fund. And then my brother, Eric Kroll with Ag Performance in Buffalo Center. They're the leader in conventional seed throughout the Midwest. Contact Eric at 341-3361 if you're looking for a higher net return on your fields. That's Eric Kroll, 341-3361. So basketball, let's get to it. This was kind of where you guys had a lot of success in those couple seasons you were leading the helm. Your first season, 1995-96, so kind of going back to that era with Candace and some of those girls. You guys were tall that year is what I found in my research for a girls basketball team. Amy Peterson, 6'1", Chris Jen, 6'1", Denise Rasmussen, 5'11", Haley Newbrow, 5'10", among others. They mentioned those in the paper that you guys were a pretty lengthy team.
Yeah, Candace the other starter there.
Yep, and I don't know, how tall is Candace?
Well, I would put her at 5'10", 11.
Yeah, pushing 6 maybe. Rachel Wilms, Stacy Grove were also a couple of your regulars, but they were injured to start that season, I found. You guys started that year with an 86-23 win over WCLT, which is kind of fun to see in headlines because they're no longer a school, so you don't think about them as much anymore.
Right.
Come late December, you guys were ranked in the top 10. One thing that kind of threw me, you guys beat Belmont on the road 39-34 that year, and Amy Peterson had 28 of the 39 points. Yeah. What do you remember about that point of the season, being ranked in the top 10? What's that?
Beat it into the inside if it works, right?
Were you guys kind of a ground and pound type offense, or run the set and get it inside?
Yes.
And that was kind of basketball back then. There wasn't as much run and gun like we see today. It was get the ball down the floor, get to your set, and run the play and go with it, right?
Correct. Yeah, we were tall, so that was what we ran as much as we could, but we didn't have a real solid 3-point shooter on that team. So
who was your primary ball handler?
Haley.
Haley was?
Yeah.
And she was quick. I know track was her thing as well. So she was able to weave in and out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Being ranked in the top 10, what did you feel a target on your back at all, or were you guys just doing your thing?
Well, yeah, both actually. We were trying to get to the Christmas break without a loss, but I think we got a last second 3-point shot. I think there was Osage player threw up and we lost by a point.
Okay.
But
yeah, I didn't find that one in my notes, but I didn't go through every single week of the paper. You guys beat Forest City pretty handily in January, and then North Iowa seemed to be kind of the team that gave you guys some fits back then.
Well,
former Thompson, North Iowa.
Exactly, and then you got Tom running the show. He's really good.
Yeah, Tom Smith and Dave Kakachik were a good tandem for a lot of years. What was it about Tom that made him so good?
He had a real good basketball intelligence.
Yeah, and defense. I think they probably spent more time on defense than they did offensively at practice. They were always in those low-scoring type of games, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. That North Iowa game that you guys won 52-51, you guys were up 8 with 2 minutes to go, gave up the lead. Amy Peterson hit 1 of 2 free throws to be down by just 1. And then Denise Rasmussen grabbed the rebound, put it in for the win. At that point, you're 8-1. Like you said, you only had lost to Osage. At this point in your first season as a basketball coach, let alone a head coach, had a talented group of girls. Were you already thinking deep tournament run type of thing, or were you just trying to survive the day, the week, each game?
Well, obviously one game at a time, but we had the experience. We were a lot of seniors on that squad, and we were hoping to go quite a ways.
Yeah, and then North Iowa though set you back a little bit, like we were saying. They're kind of a nemesis. They beat you 42-40 in late January. again, you guys were up 8 late in the game. You gave up 10 straight points to lose by 2. We already kind of touched on Dave and Tom here. Very defensive minded, low scoring type of games. Yeah, that's just typical North Iowa girls basketball. And then you guys also lost to Emmitsburg that week by about 20, but they were ranked 2nd in the state. Then going through the rest of your season here to playoffs, you beat Lake Mills by 10. That's your alma mater. Had to felt pretty good to get you guys to 10-3. You lost in overtime to Belmont, then you beat Garner. But you guys were knocked off the top spot of the conference with another loss. You beat Forest City and Northwood. It looks like you guys got 2nd in the conference that year. Were you pretty happy with how you guys finished?
Well, obviously, you always want to finish on top, but it is what it is.
Yeah. But I guess my question is, were you just glad that things were going well? Because like I said, I didn't know you were a first-time basketball coach.
Yes.
You had to have been a little bit tickled that you had an experienced group of girls, you had a talented group of girls, and you were just helping them get to this point, I'm sure. Was that a relief at that point?
Very much so. Yeah, they, obviously I was doing the best I could, but again, it's a whole lot different to coaching it than it is playing it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Who was your assistant or assistants that year?
Well, that first year, the assistant was Sherry Harle.
Okay. Yep.
And then the second year was a first-time teacher in the high school. Did you know a Patty Solstrom?
I don't. That name doesn't ring a bell.
She was only there a couple years, but she was the assistant the second year.
Okay, nice. Playoffs. Let's get to playoffs this first year. You lost to Belmont just a couple weeks prior, but then in the playoffs, you beat them 71-48. What was the difference there?
Well, I don't know if you remember that winter at all, but then, this sounds like an excuse and I don't mean it to be one. That was a rough winter. It was constant delays, school delays, cancellations. Anyway, poor Timmerman, he kept trying we had to reschedule so many games and he was running out of dates. And there was a couple teams that we never did get fitted into reschedule, but we did reschedule Belmont's and we ended up playing it on a Saturday afternoon there. But, I don't know. It was different, but
those atmospheres, Saturday afternoon game, the atmosphere is just different.
We got on tournament play.
Yep, exactly. So that put you guys in a district final at Eagle Grove. On the road, you guys won that game 66-54. Started the game on a 13-1 run. It was the 2nd straight basketball district title for the girls program. So before you took over, they had won a district title before. So again, they had the experience. You as a new coach just kept the ball rolling. That moved you guys on to a regional semifinal at Britt against Garner. I couldn't find the score, but you won because we're going to talk about the fact that you played Garrigan in the next round. Do you remember how close that Garner game was?
I don't.
I looked and I searched for a while, and then I was like, all right, I got to move on. I know they won, so that's good enough. So let's keep going. Again, kept on going here. You had Garrigan, but that's where the season ended. Kind of ran into a buzzsaw with Garrigan. Sounds like they had a couple of good groups of girls go through it about this time. They beat you 64-40. The game was at Algona High. Darcy Kohlhaus, I don't know if I said that name right.
You did.
And the paper said that was your main concern. You had to kind of change the game plan to try to stop her offensively. 1,700 fans were estimated at that game.
It was packed. I do remember that, walking into the gym and it was packed. That was fun.
Yeah, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. I know I'll get on the live stream for some basketball games, and the gym is still pretty full, not 1,700 fans full, because Algona High is a little bigger of a school, but the support that people still give West Hancock athletics is pretty incredible, in my opinion.
Great. Yeah.
So talk about that game, talk about that season. Had to have been a memorable first year for you, maybe a little bit relieved that it was over and just you survived and did as well as you did, but obviously you were pretty close to going to state at the same time. So
Yeah,
What was going through your mind?
it was a disappointing loss, obviously, because of the fact that, that had been pretty exciting for the girls to make it to the tournament. And, me too, as a first time coach. But Garrigan was a solid team. They had height, and they had outside shooting that was excellent. So we knew it would be tough.
Yeah. What'd you do in the off season? Were you pretty intense in the off season? Had the girls lifting, coming in for workouts? Were they pretty dedicated to getting better?
For the second year, but the first year I didn't get hired till a little bit later, so I didn't have any idea. Robin had some open gyms, and I talked to him, and he allowed the girls to come in and shoot when they could. So nothing actually scheduled for that first group.
Yeah, you said you guys weren't a great outside shooting team. Was that something you guys focused on from your year 1 to year 2 to get you over the hump?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What kind of a coach? We'll get into this maybe a little bit later too, but what kind of a coach were you? Were you pretty intense, pretty laid back? How'd that look?
That'd be a good question for one of the athletes. You never know how you are until they tell you that. But I would think I was pretty laid back. Kind of more of a cheerleader type than I know I've never was in your face kind of a coach. But,
yeah. Did you ever get teed up?
No, I didn't
think about it for a second there, but yeah. Did you ever get close?
I tell you what, there was one game. So there was one game. Actually, it was Candace Wilson. We were playing Garner the second year that I was coaching. So Candace would have been a senior, and we were playing Garner at Garner. And it was, we were behind by 1 point with just a few seconds left. And Candace stole the ball and drove it all the way down for a layup. And our crowd just went nuts because there was just a few seconds left. And we were all jumping and cheering, and it was so loud in the gym. Well, what we found out is the referee took the points away and said she traveled.
Oh.
So I called a timeout, and the ref came over to the bench to let the bench know that I had called the timeout. And I talked to him, and he said, this is the first time a ref has ever done this to me, but he said, I'm sorry, that really probably wasn't a travel.
They admitted that they were wrong. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
You should have decided that a long time ago, but
yeah.
So we lost, but we came back and beat them then in the tournament.
Yep, and that's where we're going on the notes here. Postseason, you guys beat Garner 55-32 in the district semifinal. So kind of like that Belmont game the year before. Close loss turned it into a blowout win in the playoffs. They had only lost once on that season. You guys had lost 4 times. You're up by 1 at the end of the first, 2 at halftime. Then you're up 12 going into the fourth, and then won by 23. So just slowly chunking away and got that win.
That was
a good game. Where can't remember, does it say where it was?
Actually, it was a home game.
Was it?
It was in Britt. It was a home game.
So
Richie Zool poured on the points. She just got hot.
Nice.
And, our defensive plan for that game worked really well.
Yeah, 32 points, I'd say so. Yeah, especially against a 1-loss team. But then district finals, you ran into Garrigan again. A little bit closer. The year before it was 64-40. And this season, 96-97 was 42-30 lost to Garrigan. Again, they were a top 10 team. Obviously, you get that far, you're a good team. Did they have that same girl, the Kolosh girl, same team, or they have some new girls in there?
They had some of the same ones, but their post player, their center, that was really good the year before, I believe she graduated.
Yeah. Question I like to ask here. So you had 2 very good teams those 2 years you coached. If you had not had to run into Garrigan at this point in time and made it to state, were you guys talented enough to maybe do some damage down there, you think?
I think we would have, because Garrigan made it and they won. At least the first game, because we were down there watching them. They won that first game. So, we maybe another night we could have gotten them. We were cold shooting the night we played them.
Yeah. It's always fun, but maybe not fun sometimes, the woulda, coulda, shoulda, because then you start thinking about, we could have had a trophy in the trophy case, and but kind of interesting to talk about, to say the least. So going after that second season, you're gonna lose quite a bit of talent there. You're pretty senior heavy by that point. How are you feeling program wise though after those first 2 seasons, before you knew the health scare? Were you feeling pretty good about things, that you had a good group coming up and kids were working hard?
Yeah, that the previous year's juniors, obviously now seniors, they were a good group of kids to work with. So we still had some height, we still had some speed, just trying to work on the outside shot a little more, but confident that they would do well.
Yep, and I mean, never been short on talent at West Hancock, that's for sure. So I remember that group to a degree. Some of the younger girls, I was a manager with Chad Eisman, Justin Johnson, back when Mark Eisman was coaching with Coach Drake, and then obviously the girls. We'd go to games together, and some of those girls would make me sit by them on the bus rides and tell me things that my parents would not be thrilled to hear about. Don't remember how they ever did on the court. I just remember the bus rides mostly. They would either give me a hard time or see it as an opportunity to corrupt me a little bit. I won't name any names, but yeah. Yeah. So I have some good memories of that era. Don't remember a lot what happened on the court, but some of the behind the scenes stuff. So so you never got to start your third season. You're diagnosed with cancer. Can you talk about that a little bit and how that affected you?
Yeah, that was quite the timing on that. We were about to start basketball. I had an appointment at the Mayo Clinic on a Friday, and Monday we were supposed to start our first day of basketball. And that Friday night, I didn't get back from Rochester till early evening. And I had known at that time that it was cancer and I needed to be back in Rochester Monday morning for surgery. And so I had to go home. I had to have my husband, okay, we stop at this house. So I stopped at Hugh Carter's house, had to tell him, and so he could get a sub quick. I missed the whole second quarter of school.
Okay.
And then I had to run over to Brummers and tell him the same thing. And then, so we had to figure out, what are we going to do as far as basketball is concerned, because I couldn't be there. But we worked it out, and this Patty Solstrom took over.
Okay.
She took over the head spot. And I tried to come back at some point and kind of help out as much as I could, but
yeah, energy was probably pretty zapped with all the treatments and stuff.
yeah.
Yep. And how long did it take to get rid of the cancer?
Well, I sat out for 2 years of coaching. And then when I started to felt good enough to come back, the head basketball coach was already taken, but there was a freshman volleyball.
Okay.
So I stepped in then.
Yep. Do you have any thoughts every once in a while of, like, if you were able to continue doing basketball, how that would have looked for you? Do you think you would have kept things going?
Well, it would have been fun, but it just didn't work out that way. I knew that it would have been more fun to focus on just one sport instead of from volleyball straight into basketball.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it would have been fun to.
Yeah. A handful of years later, you would have been able to coach Denise. Her group of girls they were pretty successful. Alicia Zatto before they moved.
Yes.
Amber Halick, Angie Pritchard, Brittany Johnson, Linda Jewell. I'm trying to think of them all off the top of my head. I didn't write them down, but
Ellen,
they were obviously when I was in school, and they had pretty good group. Sarah Swanson played on that team as well.
yes, she did.
Yep, they were a good group. Before we wrap it up here, talk about just West Hancock in general, Britt in general, the school, the community. What's it like been being a part of that community now for, what'd you say, about 30 years now?
Yeah, pretty close to 30 years. Yeah, it's been great. I love it here. Like the small town. The school's been awesome to me, and appreciate all they've done for me.
Did you say you retired from teaching about 5 years ago?
Yes, this is the start of this year would be the start of the 6th.
Yeah. Are they still begging you to sub, or have you been subbing at all?
No, I did a little bit. Just actually, I went back and I said, instead of subbing in the classroom, I'd like to do something different. So I've subbed as a janitor. I've subbed in the kitchen, as a para, just different things.
That would be interesting. They try to rope you into coming back at all? I know with the teacher shortage, that's happening right now.
No, not yet.
Yeah. It's not like Des Moines Public. I saw they're offering people like 50 grand just to stay for another year instead of giving them money to leave like it was in the past. Now it's the opposite. So I don't know if they'd been calling you at all or anything.
No.
Still keeping up with West Hancock athletics and activities a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting to some games. And
so this year's seniors, I love that class, and that was the last class I had.
Okay.
Hired the year they were fresh, or the year they were 5th graders.
Okay.
Now they're seniors.
Yeah, goes fast. So like Brighton Coogee, I'm just thinking football wise. Brighton Coogee's a senior this year, and some of those guys that was your last group.
Yep, and Ryland Barnes, and yeah.
Yep. He's gonna go to Iowa State too, just like his former teacher. So who are some of the teachers? You mentioned Mr. Carter as principal. Talk about him, talk about some of the people you taught with.
Oh, he was a great principal. Really enjoyed him. Yeah.
What made him so good? Because everyone speaks highly of him.
I don't know, just his personality. He's easy to get along with. Yeah, like to joke around, but definitely got to business, so.
Yep. What was he in your classroom a lot, checking in on you, or did he kind of let you guys do your thing?
Oh, he pretty much let us do our thing.
Yeah.
But was there to help whenever he could.
I know Michelle DeHart's been the principal now at the elementary for a decent while. Who are some of your other principals between Carter and her? Or did it wouldn't have gone from him to her. I think there was at least someone in between, wasn't there?
Yes, there was Gretchen DeVore.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And at one time, Dick Keith was the superintendent and the elementary principal.
Yep. And he was only there for a couple of years, wasn't he? He wasn't there very long.
I don't know, maybe 5.
Was he there that long? Okay.
I can't remember for sure. But
yep. I actually interviewed at a Central City with Gretchen DeVore. She was the principal there.
Okay.
And I was looking for a job, applying everywhere and anywhere. And she called me up and said, "Hey, it's Mrs. DeVore. You want to come in for an interview?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I thought, "Oh, I know her. That'll be good." It was the worst interview I'd ever had in my couple years of trying to get a teaching job. Just absolutely bombed it. And I left and I'm like, that was terrible. And she called me and I'm like, I'm not that bad, is I think what I told her. Like,
not that bad.
It wasn't that bad. I had a really bad day, and she goes, "I know, but we went with someone else," and I wasn't surprised one bit. So yeah. Who are some of your coworkers that you worked with for a while that meant a lot to you?
Jennifer Hammer was the other 5th grade teacher for quite a while. Let's see, we get Marlene Lair.
Yep.
And then Caitlin Huffman just left and went to Ames, but she was the science teacher at that time.
Yep.
So 4 of us were down in the middle school teaching.
Yeah, because with the new school, didn't they switch it to more of a 5-8 building in Kanawha?
Correct.
Yep, that was a little different than when I was in school. You mentioned earlier Dixie Fogarty. She was a first-year teacher that took over for Mr. Wells, and that was my 5th grade teacher. So you were next door. And I had Miss Fogarty. She was only there probably a couple of years though, and then she left. You remember how long she was there?
Oh, I'm not sure. I can't remember for sure how many years, but yeah.
If she ends up watching this, I do apologize. We knew she was a first-year teacher and had a few moments where we knew we could get away with things. And I'd like to say that we taught her, showed her the ropes and taught her how to do things or not to do things. So either I'm sorry or you're welcome. I don't know which way to go with that. So.
You wouldn't have done anything bad, would you?
Oh, never. No, it was the other kids in the class. That was perfect. So yeah, that old Britt Elementary, I love that place. We were talking before we recorded. That was a fun building to be in. I can still smell it when people bring it up. And that place just seemed huge to us as younger kids. That was just a massive building. So.
Yeah.
What'd you like better? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, pretty unusual to have a swimming pool in an old building like that.
Yeah, we'd spent a lot of time down there. That was quite the building. What'd you like better, the old Britt Elementary building or the Kanawha building? What was more like a cooler atmosphere to teach in?
You're talking about the old building?
Yeah, the old Britt building, and then were you over in Kanawha?
I was in Kanawha for a while, yeah. Well, there was a lot of space, a lot more space in the Kanawha building for me because I ended up taking over one of the kindergarten rooms. So it was pretty, I liked all the space there.
Is that multi-purpose room? Does that still have carpet on the walls? Is that still a thing?
On the walls, it's on the floor. It's orange carpet on the floor.
I thought it went up part of the walls too, was it? I could be wrong, but
I don't think it did, but then the carpet looks like a gym floor.
Yeah, yep. I remember being kind of that burnt orangish, but I swear it was on the wall, but I could be wrong too. It's been a while, so yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, we're gonna wrap this thing up here. Thanks again to my 14 sponsors tonight, including White Barn Picket Fence and your daughter. Next up, I have the 1987 wrestling team, and then Doug Sickles, speaking of Kanawha. Brian Benning, Steph Arey, and Steve Perkins will be my next 5 podcasts, and hopefully there's a state championship football game preview podcast mixed in there somewhere in the next few weeks. And then speaking of elementary teachers, a couple days after Christmas, I have one booked. Mrs. Kitchen, Mrs. Hildman, Mrs. McCauley, Mrs. Farrell, and Mrs. Geelan. I just talked to her on the phone a while ago. She's going to join us, and I'm hoping Judy Brum as well. But she has some stuff going on, so I'm not going to reach out to her for a while. So excited to do that podcast, and I was excited to do this one with you and talk some basketball and volleyball. Any last minute things we forgot or any shout outs you want to throw out there before we hang her up?
Can't think of any.
No. Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, I like doing all the podcasts, but the ones where it's people that were directly involved in my childhood is always kind of fun for me to talk about and reminisce a little bit. So, well, I appreciate it. And like always, if you want to sponsor the podcast, let me know. I'd be more than happy to talk with you about that. And playoff football this Friday against Wapsie Valley should be a good game. But that's a tough matchup for us in the second round. So, all right. Well, thanks again, Miss Rasmussen. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet. Go Eagles.